If any single theme linked the week's events, it has to be language, from the bombastic lawyering of the hapless Attorney General Geoffrey Cox to Boris Johnson's provocative use of the word surrender. Though he was later to be accused of using emotionally charged language himself a few hours later in the Commons, Labour's Barry Shearman was on mischievous form when we met him not long after Parliament resumed on Wednesday.
But every word he has uttered, no shame today, no shame at all. The fact that this government cynically manipulated the prorogation to shut down this House so that it couldn't work as a democratic assembly. He knows that that is the truth. And to come here with his barrister's bluster to obfuscate the truth, and for a man like him, a party like this, and a leader like this Prime Minister, to talk about morals and morality is a disgrace!
Well, there's no doubting the passion and your vigour, but Geoffrey Cox is just trying to deliver the will of the people that you and your colleagues are frustrating and have been frustrating for 3 and a bit years.
That actually isn't true. He was being absolutely bloody annoying. He was doing that typical, blustering, rompoly stuff that may work in the High Court or some of the courts that he's worked in, of course.
Well, he's having a lot of problems
He's
as Attorney
a very
General.
successful barrister, of course, the highest paid in the land before he gave it up for this job. And the fact of the matter is, he is in the court good at it. But that sort of bluster actually might work in the courts, and it might work in the party conferences. It doesn't work in the
You're
chamber.
not giving him the benefit of the doubt?
No, not at all. Because, look, I'm sitting there, and it was he that started to talk about morality of the House of Commons, morality of politicians. Who the hell is this government to talk about morality? I don't want to go into any seedy secrets, but the fact is this was the Queen was lied to. The Queen was not told the truth. If that's morality...
Well, we don't know, do we, what was actually said, and Lady Hale...
If you listen to her carefully, she was being extremely polite, and she is the head of the big, a very prestigious institution, but actually that was posh language that the Queen was lied to.
Invoking the name of murdered Labour MP Joe Cox for political gain saw Labour and Tory politicians screaming abuse at one another, to the horror of Joe's sister, Kim Leadbeater.
If you feel angry, if you feel emotionally charged about something to do with the Brexit issue, how is one supposed to process that?
It's really, really difficult, and no one's pretending it's easy, least of all me. All I can do is speak from my personal experience of the last 3 years, where I have dealt with anger on a daily basis since Joe was killed. I've dealt with despair, I've dealt with disbelief, I've dealt with some pretty intense emotions. But I think when you feel those emotions coming, you have to think, what is the most useful way of channeling them? And we've tried to channel them into something positive. And the other thing, really important point is...
Through the foundation.
Through the work of the foundation, through the work of the great get-together campaign that we do to try and bring people together and try and find common ground. And it's not always easy. And the other really important point is, of course we are not going to agree on everything. Of course we are going to have differences. But it's how we deal with those differences and how we conduct the debate. The last thing I want, the last thing Joe's family want, is for Joe's name to be used to silence debate. We are so lucky we live in a democratic country where we have got the right to have these conversations, and robust, passionate discussion and debate should be encouraged and it should be embraced. But the way that we have those debates and discussions, we have to be really, really careful. We're playing a dangerous game if it becomes too aggressive and very brutal and very combative. Sometimes you can't choose what happens in life, but you can choose how you respond. And we have to do that. We all have to do that at the moment and think about how can I be part of the solution and not be part of the problem? I could have come on here and gone crazy about what happened last night. I could have gone bonkers. Yeah. I could have been shouting and swearing and carrying on. And I asked myself, is that helpful? Is that going to add anything? Is it going to move anything forward? Is it going to make me feel better for 5 minutes? Possibly. Is it going to make my mum and dad feel better? No. Is it going to make the rest of the country feel better? No. So what I'm trying to do is keep calm, rein it in, and think of a way to help to move things forward. And I won't get it right, Matthew, and I'll get abuse and people will be horrible to me. And I guess I've chosen this path and I have to take that. But I think, if we can all just reflect a little bit on our own behaviour, that is the only way that things are going to change.
Kevin and myself do our best to take some of the heat out of Brexit discussions, shouting abuse or even endlessly repeating lines like, "Why don't we just leave?" It's not going to get us anywhere. Enter comic Matt Ford, who gave us a masterclass in political balance.
I'm not trying to please everyone, well, in the sense that I don't expect everyone to agree with me. And one of the things
It's tricky, isn't it, at times?
It is, but I think, as long as you conduct yourself in a broadly fair way, and as long as you're not disrespectful about people that you really disagree with, I think audiences can sit there for a certain amount of time and listen to you disagree with them without getting annoyed and walking out. And I think most people, as long as you're not saying, well, everyone who voted Remain's an idiot or everyone who voted Leave is thick, then I think people are more than capable over the course of a show, if you're going to take the mick out of everyone, from being fair-minded and saying, well, I had to sit through the Boris stuff, so I'll sit through the Corbyn stuff now. I think most people are broadly fair-minded, and the people who come to my shows are Leavers and Remainers, people who support Scottish independence, UKIP people, as well as hard-left, centre-left, Brexiteers and everyone in between. And most people
Do you
are really
fancy
mature.
running the country?
Oh, God, no. Oh, no, that's the worst job in the world. Oh, sod that.
Can you imagine what Boris would do to be able to say, I brought together Leavers, Remainers, Scottish nationalists and loyalists? I mean, it's just, you've outlined his dream that you
Well,
managed.
have I? Because I don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants to
Okay, let's
unite
talk
people.
about Boris then.
If you look at the way he behaved yesterday, and of course, by the way, it's a great honour to be here. I accept the ruling of the Supreme Court. Yeah. And obviously, he's got that entertaining element to him, right? But you saw him in the House of Commons yesterday, and I watched it the entire session. He has no desire to unite Parliament. He has no desire to unite the country.
The revolving door to our studio nearly spun off its hinges this past week as one big name celeb after another dropped in for a chat. Our favourite interview, though, that had to be with Hotel Mumbai and Harry Potter star Jason Isaacs.
Really, the point of the film is nothing to do, or the gunmen are humanised very much in the film. You understand they come from tremendous poverty and how indoctrinated they are. As part of what they heard on the phone calls, you hear some of their certainty wobble as they're confronted with what they were told were subhuman people, and they begin to be human to them. But it's really the stories of the rescues, how people saved each other, how, in fact, once the bullets started flying, these lies we're told currently from all the highest pulpits in the world, that there's so much that separates us and people who try and drive wedges between us. Once the bullets started flying, all those divisions of religion, ethnicity, socioeconomic divisions, they evaporated and people helped each other. There are hundreds of stories that Hollywood couldn't dream up of incredible heroism and courage in the face of utter terror, and we tell a few of them in the story.
Such as?
Well, so the kitchen staff were stuffing baking trays down them and tying pots and pans on as improvised bulletproof vests. The staff members of the hotel who live in slums mostly. When we use the word slum, we mean it differently from them. They pay rent on these, very impoverished places. They would escort guests out of the hotel. They come back into the hotel. They find more guests. And we're talking about there's mayhem and carnage around them. They went out, in and out all night. When they couldn't get out anymore, they'd be on the phone to their relatives who were watching it all play out on television, as you say, Kevin. And they'd instruct them. They'd say, look, the elevators are blown up on the West Wing, or there's set a fire on the 9th floor or something. And they would hide the guests in the lift shafts or in the clubs and move them around in the ballrooms. And of the 31 people who lost their lives, 16 were staff members. And it's extraordinary. It's obviously a tragic loss of life, but 1,500 people could have been dead, and 1,470 walked out of there, because there are hundreds of stories of quiet acts of courage. And, in our story, a very rare thing, which because it's a real story, not concocted by a writer, the heroes are the ones without guns, and they're the poorest.